All right, so we're going to begin a unit on statistics. So let's just go over some of the basics. Some of the basics include measures of central tendency. Measures of central tendency represent the mean, the median, and the mode. And I'm sure you guys are familiar with this, but if not, jot down these definitions. The mean is simply the average of a set of data, and that's found by adding together all the scores and dividing by the number of scores that occur. The median is the middle of a group of ascending or descending. Notice, ascending or descending, so the list must be ordered to find the median, and that's the middle value. The mode is what occurs most often. So a set can be non-modal or bimodal. Yes, it can have two modes. So let's just work on an example of that. Here's a set of data in which there is a 9-person basketball team. Let's find the mean, the median, and the mode. So this list is already descending, so I can find the mode very easily. There's 9 scores, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the middle value. Therefore, the median is 8. Just really quick about even sets of data. If I wanted to find the median, and this extra 2 is not in there, now we have a set of 8 scores. So the middle, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. There is no middle term. So in this case, the median is the average of the middle 2. So the median here would be 8.5. 8 plus 9 divided by 2. The mode of this set would be what occurs most often. And in this case, 2 occurs most often. So the mode is 2. The mean would simply be 21 plus 15 plus 12 plus 9 plus 8 plus 7 plus 5 plus 2 plus 2 divided by 9. So let's just calculate that. So we have 21 plus 15 plus 12 plus 9 plus 8 plus 7 plus 5 plus 2 plus 2. The sum here is 81. I'm going to divide by 9. And that means the average is 9. So the sum, the mean, is 81 divided by 9, which was 9. The mode was 2. And the median we found was 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. Okay, just different ways to describe a set of data. So now, what if it's not as simple of a set of data? In this case, we have a frequency distribution, which means that things are occurring more than once. This set of data represents the number of books read for a given month by a high school senior. So a survey was taken, and the survey asked, how many books do you read in a given month? Okay, well, nobody read 1 book. 2 students read 2 books. 4 students read 3 books. 12 students read 4 books. 6 read 5 books. 3 read 6 books. 1 read 7 books. And 1 read 8 books in a month. Let's find the mean, the median, and the mode. In order to do this, show you a little shortcut in the graphing calculator. So we're going to be using the stat button. If you push the stat button, you're going to see 3 headers here. The edit header, the calculate header, and the tests header. So what we want to do is edit a list. So now you're going to see L1 and L2 pop up. To clear any existing data in L1 or L2, simply scroll up and highlight L1 or highlight L2 and push clear. So now what we're going to do, we're going to be putting our X values in L1 and our frequency values in L2. Yes, it's very important to know which one is which. In this case, our frequency is the number of students, and our X value is the number of books. So I'm just going to put this in 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in L1. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now I'm going to populate L2 with the frequencies. Make sure that you're putting the right frequency with its corresponding X value. So 1136, 1136, 12420, 12420. Make sure you have the same amount of elements in L1 that you do in L2. And now what we're going to do, we're going to try to calculate some statistics here. So let's go back to the stat button. And now we're done editing our list. Now what we want to do is calculate some statistics. The one var represents one variable. Yes, there's only one variable, in which the variable in this case represents the number of books. You will never be using two variable statistics in this course. Yes, you will use it eventually, but not in this course. We'll be using one variable statistics. We want to calculate the one var stats, and now what this is doing, it's reading L1 and L2. The problem here is that the calculator doesn't know that there's an L2, so you have to tell it. We want to calculate the one var stats for L1, second 1, comma, second 2, L2. So now what you're telling the calculator is calculate the stats for list 1 and list 2. And we're going to get a bunch of information here. This year, oh, a little off, the X bar is 4.38. That's our mean. So the mean, use X bar, 4.39. 38, sorry. 4.38. That's our average. So to find the mode, all you have to do is look at the frequencies. The frequency here is 12, so the mode here is 4. The median, you can pull right from the calculator. If you want, you could find half of this, but it's very easy to just look at the calculator. If you keep scrolling down, all this information here is saying that we have 29 students represented. The minimum score is 2, and the median is 4. So keep scrolling down, it gives you more information. We'll investigate that information a bit further on, but for now, the median here is 4. This does not give you the mode, you'll just have to look at your frequency distribution to do that. So the median was 4. So, other questions here. What percentile does a student who reads 4 books fall in? Let's think about what the term percentile represents. So we're done with this part here. We found the mean, the median, the mode. What percentile does a student who reads 4 books fall in? Percentile means out of 100. So it's giving you a percentage that you're at or better than. So what we'll have to do, let's look to see where does 4 books even lie. Here's 4 books. This is the one we're concerned with. We want to know what percentage are we at or better than. So let's count up how many are below 4. Well, there's 6 students below 4 books. So now it's a pretty wacky procedure here. But to find the percentile, what you're going to do is count how many are below, and then use half of equal. And in this case, I mean 4. So there were 12 students that read 4 books. Half of that, 6. So we're going to use 6 for that, and we're going to use everything preceding it. So we're talking about the number of students. Before I counted up the number of books, my mistake. We're counting up the number of students that are at 4 books or below. So 6 plus 4 is 10, plus 2 is 12. So there's 12 students that are at or below 4 books. So what we're going to do is just divide that by 29. So 12 divided by 29, and we'll round to the nearest whole. So in this case, we have, again, 12 divided by 29. This is the number of total students. This is a number that are below 4 books, and half of that are at 4 books, which gives us, represented as a decimal, 4.14. Percentile is a percent, not a decimal, so we're going to make this 41.4%. Percentiles typically don't use decimals, so the percentile in this case is the 41st percentile. What are the upper and the lower quartiles? We're going to go back to the calculator for that. The upper and lower quartiles in the calculator are Q1 and Q3. So Q1 is 4. Here's the lower quartile, lower number, Q1. Q3 is the upper quartile, and 5. Let's just go back to that first example to see what is a lower and an upper quartile. An upper and lower quartile, using this information, just a little easier to visualize. We found that the median was 8, because that's the middle value. Well, the median is going to cross out your list and create 2 other lists. You're going to have an upper list and a lower list. The upper quartile is the median of that list. The lower quartile is the median of this list. So the median can also be represented as Q2, where the upper quartile will now be the median of this list. There's 4, so we want to take the average of the middle 2. 15 plus 12 is 27, and 27 divided by 2 is 13.5. That's our Q3, our upper quartile. The lower quartile is the middle of these. So there's 4. We're going to cut it in half, which splits the list in 2. So we're going to average the middle 2 terms. 5 plus 2 is 7, and 7 divided by 2 is 3.5, and that's our Q2. So in this case, we had a upper quartile of 13.5. We had a median, or a second quartile, of 8, and we had a lower quartile of 3.5. So lower quartiles are very closely related to medians. Let's compare percentiles and quartiles for a moment. Percent means out of 100, and quartile means quarter. So it's the 25th percentile, the 50th percentile, and the 75th percentile. Oops. All right, so now another way to display data is using group data. And here's just an arbitrary math class and their corresponding test grades for some arbitrary math class, nobody important, but here are some scoring breakdowns for a given exam. 5 students scored between a 46 and a 50, 11 students scored between a 41 and 45, and as follows. So these are the test scores, the group of test scores, and these are the number of students that scored in that range of values. Really quick, the class width here, although the difference here is 4, the class width is 5, because you have to include 46. So if you count them out, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50. So there's 5 as a class width. All we want to do here is find the mean, the median, and the mode. So what we're going to do here is go back to the calculator and plug in for an L1 and L2. That means I'll have to go back to my stat button. I'll have to edit my lists, but I already have values in there. Let's clear them out by highlighting L2 and pushing clear. Go back to L1, highlight and push clear. So now the problem with this is that you can only put a single value in L1 and a single value in L2. You can't put this range of values from 46 to 50. So what you do, you create what's called a midpoint. And we're going to call that our X. The midpoint is simply 46 plus 50 divided by 2, or the halfway point between 46 and 50, and that is 48. Then you could use your class width to find all the subsequent midpoints. Class width is 5, so everything is going to decrease by 5. So 43, 38, 23, 28, that's not a 23, that's a 33. This is 23. Okay, and if you're unsure of yourself, just add them together and divide by 2. Add them together and divide by 2. Add them together and divide by 2. So now we can plug in these values to our L1. 48, 43, 38, and follows. 48, 43, 38, 33, 28, and 23. Now our L2 will be our frequencies. 5, 11, 8, 5, 11, 8, let's see, 4, 2, 1. 4, 2, 1. Make sure you have the same number of elements in L1 that you do in L2. If you don't, then something's wrong. Make sure you plug this in very carefully. Because if you mess up one number, then all of your data is going to be wrong. So now what we want to do, we're going to go back to our stat button, and now we want to calculate some statistics on it. One variable statistics. Enter. But now what we have to do, we have to tell our calculator, use L1 and L2. If you forget L1 and L2 here, it's simply going to calculate the stats for L1 only, without frequencies. So we have to tell the calculator, use both lists, L1, comma, L2. And that's, the comma is right below sign, and L1 is second 1, L2 is second 2. So now we have all of our stats. Make sure your N matches up to your data. We had 31 students to begin with. This has 31 students. The average is 39.6. So X bar is 31.6. That wasn't 31. What was it? It was 39.6. Sorry about that. 39.6. We have a mode of, let's just look at our frequency distribution. There's our most occurring. So our mode is 43. And our median is, we'll have to go back to the calculator. Median, let's keep scrolling down. Minimum value of 23. Lower quartile of 38, median of 43, and also an upper quartile of 43. So now the reason that's occurring is because we have 11 scores in here. So it's the middle value, and it's also, it occurs so often that it's also the upper quartile. So our median is 43. Okay, so the mean is 39.6, the mode is 43, the median is 43, and the upper quartile is 43. So that's a pretty significant value for this set of data. All right, so now let's just quickly go through some measures of dispersion. Measures of dispersion in contrast to measures of essential tendency. Measures of essential tendency mean what can represent this whole set of data? What number can I use to describe this whole set of data? And then the measures of dispersion tells you how volatile is this set of data? How does this data change from one end of the spectrum to the other? So the range is the difference between the largest and the smallest values. The interquartile range is Q3 minus Q1. The variance is the sum of the squares of the deviation from the mean, and the standard deviation is giving you the consistency of a set of data. It's the square root of the variance, and this number provides the distance of a typical term from the mean. So the higher standard deviation, the further a typical term is from the mean. The lower standard deviation, the more consistent the set of data is with the mean. So let's do some examples here. The data below represents the number of correct questions on a 15-question exam. Find the population variance, the population standard deviation, and the interquartile range. Again, we're going to go back to the calculator, and we're going to plug in L1 and L2. Make sure L2 is your frequency. In this case, the frequency is the number of students. The variable here is the number of questions. So that's X. So let's go back to our calculator, and let's clear out any previous information. So we're going to go back to the stat button. We're going to edit our lists. We're going to clear out L2, and we're going to clear out L1. Now the information I'm putting in L1 is the X values, with 8 through 15 inclusive. 8 9,